Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Amita Trivedi, co-founder and CEO of ProMFG Media, and I welcome you to the ProMFG Think Circle Industrial HSC Summit. ProMFG Media is a knowledge platform engaging the key stakeholders of the sector, the manufacturing professionals, academia, and the subject matter experts to share best practices and create an ecosystem where manufacturing thrives. Our mission is to be the media solution-based catalyst that will connect, collaborate, and transform the manufacturing space. Safety isn't expensive, it's priceless. And I'm sure that everyone attending this summit agrees with this. Health and safety have always been the top priority for manufacturing organizations. And the focus has enhanced on it from being an operations agenda to becoming a key management agenda. The COVID-19 pandemic has created a new dimension in the way the sector operates. It has added new dynamics by augmenting new technologies in the safety sector. The organizations being focused on digitalization and advanced technologies to uplift the significance of safety in the industrial environment. I once again welcome you all to the ProMFG Think Circle at Industrial HSC Summit. Today, we have insightful sessions lined up by HSC evangelists and technical leaders to discuss the trends and technologies in this ever-critical space that will empower safety and productivity. I would like to invite and introduce Mr. Surendra Jagtap, our guest speaker, to kickstart the summit. Mr. Surendra Jagtap is a senior and well-renowned HSC practitioner with 34 years plus diverse international experience at all management levels in industrial safety, health, and environment. His professional strength lies in HSC strategy, innovation, and its skillful implementation with excellent administrative and people management skills. His previous experience has been in West Africa, Middle East, and in India with SR Project, Nirma Petrochem, Finolex Petrochemicals, Reliance, and Bajaj Auto. He is currently serving as the Group HSC Head at L&T Hydrocarbon Engineering Limited. He is also the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Decoding Safety, My Way. Over to you, Mr. Jagtap.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, good evening to all. It is my privilege to get this opportunity on this platform to be an opening batsman on this very highly
important
Sumit. The topic given to me is decoding safety. I am thinking start from the start to now, or from present to previous. But anyway, let me start because of time shortage. We will have to conclude. When I entered into this field of safety from the basic engineering to the firefighting, that time only diploma safety was the qualification, is the qualification. Now also it is a mandatory qualification, legal qualification for safety officer to work in India. And recently MTech started, but there was no much more people are aware about that course also. Our bosses were experienced, possible but not qualified safety people. They got exemption legally from the factory inspectorate office. At that time, our research teach to work as a safety officers. Majority of the people in the safety field are coming from the other disciplines. They are joining the safety field with some reluctance. But the scenario has been changed after Bhopal gas tragedy. The concept has been changed, strategy has been changed. Government also has more care taking on the safety side, on the industrial side, safety. Slowly people are coming, new talents are coming. Safety courses of various ME safety, BTech safety has been started. Many good people are coming as a choice, not as a compulsion. When we started, that time it was a industries automation zone, or you can call Revolution 3. Previously was a mechanical, then your industrialization, then your automation, and now digitalization, industry 4.0. So when majority of the things when I work in the manufacturing units and as well as in the process industries, safety approach is on need base, not on the strategically, or it was not as a must be having together. Whenever they are studying, they are coming. Whenever we require, though there are mandatory requirement of the permit to work, etc. But slowly, after Bhopal tragedy, it is becoming the laws are very strict. It becomes a safety as a part of the business requirement. It is a compelling requirement of the business to remain in the business safety. Good safety is a good business. Across the globe, it was going with that sensitizations. Then safety officers coming in this field are very knowledgeable academically. Majority of the traits required for the safety officer is courage and conviction, passion and consistency. If these are the basic traits required for the safety people to work, to understand better people's management, then we need to have a safety people that have a lot of soft skills, communication skill, interaction skill, personality development, mails writings, and thereafter all the fundamental strategies. Then you must be having the constant learning. What are the new things are coming? How is the new approach we have to do? Single approach will not fit for all the organization. Tailor-made, we have to base the strategy on the safety based on the organization, business, location, and culture, we can say. Culture is a very big subject. There are a lot of discussion will be there, but culture will not be changed overnight. Continuous practice we need to make to bring the positive safety culture in the organization. It should have its value. It should not be dependent upon only on the negatives and lagging indicators. In that way, when we call a mission zero, mission zero is a journey, not a destination. For example, this way, here I am achieving zero accident. It may not be my safety is a good foolproof. It is a journey. It is not a destination, I can say. Further, when we call a professional of the safety, there are a lot of changes are coming. Now, earlier it was the only safety department, then it became HSE department, then HSCF department, QHSE department, then sustainability there, CSR there, sometimes security is there. So one should take this as an opportunity to go in the organization. You should take this as a strength, combined strength for implementation of the strategy of the safety into any organization. These people will be your stakeholders. These people will be give you the strength, courage, and guidance to enhance the safety standard in the organization. Then, when we go further, there are a lot of issues are coming with the organization or this industry become older, more than 10 years, 15 years, 25 years. Lot of maintenance problem is there, lot of environmental issues are there. And then the production's requirement of the production is give a lot of stress on the asset integrities. Likewise, for example, now recently the vehicle policy has come. 10-year or 15-year-old vehicle to be scrapped. Okay, very good. Why not these industrial units who are having more than 25 years, 30 years, 50 years, till they are running? There are the problem on the safety and environment side of this old industries. Even the second-hand plant bringing, even shipbuilding has its own safety and environment challenges. Further, when we are talking about the development on the digitalization front, AR, VR, IoT, machine learning, such type of technology coming in the every field, including safety. There are the risk and opportunity both. Recent robo incident in the Pune is an eye-opener for us. Constant monitoring of the peoples will give insecurity among the employees. Mental health challenges with the new issues coming because all the technology are the faceless and disruptive types. There are the Ministry of Loneliness in UK and now in Japan also. The situation is becoming very different. Safety psychologists are the new entrant in our field also. We need to take note of such of the latent hazards because nobody come out with this, I have mental illness like that. But we have to address the issue individually as well as a community as well. So this digitalization, we have a lot of challenges. Cyber security is another problem. Drone attack recently in the Saudi refineries. These are also technological challenges that are there. Plus, there are the good prospect of new technologies also. Green battery, green car, green vehicles are coming. Hydrogen will be the new next generation fuel. Driverless car will bring minimum accident rate because of alarming road accidents are the challenges for us. So these are the kind of the digitalizations we need to address. Even if you see during the post-lockdown or during the lockdown, there are a lot of fire and toxic release industrial accidents are there. Repetitive natures. We are addressing one incident, another incident, the same similar nature as well. Where we are failing. Hurry-barily shut down because of emergency lockdowns has started. People are in panicky with the mental states. Then in the startup also they have a lot of pressure to start early with available manpower, no skilled manpower available. Labor force has gone to their own way into their hometowns. And then ideal machinery is more dangerous than running machinery. So these are the challenges we are having in the latest in the industrial safety field. This we need to address. With that, there are a lot of challenges are coming in the new generation safety in revolution. We need to have our continuous revision of our standard of operating procedures. We need to see our hazard indication and risk assessments, continuously monitoring, maintenance activity. With the upgrading at the skill is more important of the people. With that note, I think there are a lot of good people are available, speakers are available more than me. They are having a lot of good experiences related to this expertise in the specialized field. So I'm just stopping here, but I will be available till the session is over. And I look forward, the session should be successful with a lot of takeaway to the participants. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jagtap. You touched base across the spectrum, I think so. Training, people, process, policy, technology, security, even to mental health. Very great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Proceeding with our summit, it's now my pleasure to invite Mr. R.P. Singh to address this session. He'll be speaking on the best HSSC practices that are followed in BPCL. A brief introduction of Mr. R.P. Singh. He's a mechanical engineer by education and has completed almost 35 years with BPCL. Currently, he heads the corporate HSSC with an aspiring commitment to zero harm and zero loss. Having executed several projects of marketing and refinery and retail operations at various levels, he has an approach of detailing to root causes. He is a master in executing critical projects like retail projects, LPG import terminals, lube blending plants, cryogenic facilities, petrochemical complex, safety, and in time. In his care towards lives of workers and life of equipment, which made him to guide organizations to safer heights as a true visionary leader. Over to you, Mr. Singh. We look forward to your insights.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me first thank Pro MFG for providing me such a wonderful opportunity to, along with these esteemed speakers and panelists here. Thank you. So I think HSSC is a very vast subject, and I don't know how much time we have got. Can you just tell me?
Sir, around 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Thank you. So being a very vast subject, let me first help everyone now know after this pandemic that how important health for all of us is. And this pandemic has taught us a number of things. As a BPCL, what we did is across the country, say we have made a guidelines based on what government has given the guidelines. These protocols through our structure we implemented across the country. You can imagine that daily with our network, we are having a footfall or interaction with the people around more than 1 million people, more than 1 million people every day. But we could manage our business through these strict adherence of protocol throughout to the last man, and we could manage our business very well. So in fact, we met all the countries, you can say this oil requirement, we met very efficiently, and we managed this impact of this pandemic very minimal so that it doesn't make much impact on our business. Coming to safety, as you said, safety is if you look at the infrastructure or the interaction what we are having across the country is very vulnerable. We have implemented corporate safety management system. Practically what we did is we made standard guidelines. Basically what we said, technical standards, relevant technical standard, so that by all businesses, we have 7 business units. So all business units, entities, they have the same understanding of implementation, of safety implementation. They've come to the same platform. That's what the basic intention is. We made 12 life-saving rules, and they are non-negotiable. Say one of these 12 life-saving rules is that everyone is authorized to stop the job if any of the 11 rules are not adhered. So we have authorized each and every officer of our organization that they can stop it, they can raise alarm to any level, so that these life-saving rules are adhered in toto. So ultimate aim of all these CMS guideline is, I think Mr. Jagtap has also said, our aim is goal zero. So basically that incident and accident, we have a zero, we can achieve zero goal. Although it is a journey, but definitely our intention is how we can achieve this goal zero. And there is no harm to people, there is no harm to asset, there is no harm to environment. That's what our intention is. And our intent is to design, operate and maintain our asset in such a way that we bring risk to the minimum level, what we say ALAP level, as low as acceptable, practically acceptable limit. That's what our intention is. That's what we are doing is. And coming to the environment, basically environment as a BPCL, say our industry, we are handling hydrocarbon. This industry is basically prone for impacting environment in a very serious way. But as an organization, we took number of steps on the sustainability, and our steps have given tremendous fruit. In fact, if you look at DJSI, they have recognized last year as a top 10 oil and gas company among the globe who are working on the ESG part, say environment, social and governance part. Similarly, CDP is another benchmarker who has recognized as top oil and gas company across the globe in the same bracket. So the action what we are taking about the sustainability and governance. And if you look at the data what we did last year, say around 1791,000 metric ton of CO2 equivalent, we have reduced the emission. In fact, around 43.43 megawatt of renewable energy we are generating the power for our own consumption. If you look at total power what we are using it, we are generating 3% through this renewable energy. Similarly, for water, we did number of activities. Say, in fact, I'll tell you, around 8.3 lakh square meter of area we are using for rainwater harvesting. Through this, around 2,34,000 KL of water we are using through this collection of rainwater. And this is I can say that around 1% of the total fresh water consumption, we are getting it through this rainwater harvesting. So number of steps we have taken for environment so that we minimally impact the environment. And so ultimate aim is to impact environment as minimum as possible. In fact, through CSR activity, we have taken a project Boon. Actually, what we did is we started with the 4 villages. We thought we'll work with the 4 villages, but till 2020, around we have impacted 280 villages. Now they were water negative, now they are water positive, and they are spread across 4 states. we have taken a project of Ichamati River in West Bengal. Say we are around 10 kilometer length of river, we are cleaning it so that it gets regenerated and it is again useful for the fishing, for the agriculture part, and water becomes basically for agriculture and other purposes it can be used. So these actions we have taken for the environment, so that this environment we are impacting what, so the carbon footprint is minimized to the level possible. In fact, another initiative we have taken for the zero waste to landfill. Basically what we are committing is that we will not put any waste to the soil what we are using it in any way, and we will see that how we can dispose it off, which is very conducive to the environment. So number of steps we have taken in this field so that we impact environment minimally. I think these steps will definitely go a long way to ensure the environment, to ensure the safety of the people, all stakeholders of BPCL, and that's what we are taking these steps. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great insights. You touched base on sustainability, on environment, on reducing carbon footprint. In fact, you have also got the award. You are in the top companies of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. So congratulations on that also.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Great. I think you have set the platform for our next speaker, who is from Tata Steel. I would like to welcome Dr. Hishmi Hussain to deliver a special address. Dr. Hussain is the head of biodiversity and corporate sustainability for Tata Steel Limited, having international experience in the field of environment management, sustainable development, and water management. He is involved with benchmarking global best practices on corporate social responsibility and enhancing biodiversity conservation, the environment and water performance. He has written 2 books, several papers, and more than 160 articles in his credit. Over to you, Dr. Hishmi, if you can share your insights now.
Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk in this forum, and this is something that I am going to talk because the stage has already been set, and we all appreciate about the importance of zero harm and zero loss. So it is something that I am going to talk that many times as a HSEC professional, people don't speak about the biodiversity. But biodiversity after this pandemic, now people has realized the value. Now it is one of the most talking subject all over the globe, and people are working. Although in 1992, the CBD agreement has happened, 192 countries has signed for conservation of the biology or the biodiversity around the globe, but that was not getting so much momentum. But when we are looking about the business and when we are looking about the safety, this is something that we all come across, that there are the snake bites happen, there are the bee stings are happening. So how we can control it? Because again, when snake bite is happening at a workplace, it is related to the injury, and people are losing the life, people are losing the time, and the performance of the companies are impacting. With this perspective, I am telling and explaining that how well you can put your biodiversity conservation plan in place, so you will able to conserve the biodiversity as well as you will able to save the biodiversity, and your contribution also will be appreciated. The second very important thing that we all know that air quality is one of a killer. Many people are dying every year because of poor air quality, and the indoor air quality is something which is in our hand, which we can improve with the help of indoor plants. So when I'm talking about the snake bite, so you will be surprised to know about 2.5 million people are getting a bite annually, and more than 1.25 lakhs people are dying because of these bites, and about 50,000 people are dying within India because of these snake bites. So now you can understand the impact of snake bite, and we have done the research and we have found that almost 50% of these snake bites are reported when people are working in the field and working in the premises where there is a biodiversity or the forest area is nearby. And many of the mining operations and many of the industrial towns are in such places where we find a lot of snakes. So it is very important for the industry, for the health safety professional to highlight and to understand the importance of managing the snakes. If you are able to manage the snakes, you will able to save them, as well as you will able to provide the safety to your employees. So it is very simple that you can see in this slide that how these snakes are very one of a creature that is very important for our ecosystem. So first of all, employees should having the awareness session on the snakes, and if they understand about the snake, they should identify which are the poisonous and the non-poisonous. There are hardly 8 snakes which are poisonous. Otherwise, most of the snakes are non-poisonous in nature. So if there is any snake bite is happening, so it is very important that we should manage it properly. Many times in India, the significant amount of deaths are happening because people are not trained and people are not understand that how they can save the lives of the people. So we can provide some training to the people, provide more awareness among the masses, and also make the PPEs availability. We can utilize or take the help of the conservation organization around our businesses. We can take help of the forest department. So this will help in two ways. One side, that we are able to protect our employee, we can improve the safety. On the other hand, we can protect the biodiversity. And there are the self-help group. There are examples that the venomous snakes are used in collection of the venom and which is used in the medicine. So this is something very sustainable solution to get rid of snake bites and to managing the biodiversity. Now I'm talking, this is the second thing which I want to highlight about the air quality, and about 4.2 million people deaths per year we are recording because of stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, and chronic respiratory disease. And about 91% of the world population lives in places where the air quality limit of World Health Organization is exceeding. So these data are quite alarming, and we did not realize that even I'm sitting in a room and the air quality is not good. The WHO has done this research and they have found globally that from 2005 to 2010, and they found that benzene is one of the gas which has been reported in many of the working areas or many of the offices, and that has generated from the building material and the furnitures. The carbon monoxide is another gas which is exhausted from the petrol, but it again accumulated within the houses. The formaldehyde is another gas. So as a safety professional, as a health professional, we talk about it, but we did not think that how we can improve that indoor air quality. So solutions are in nature. It is something, the message of the United Nations this year on the World Environment Day on 5th June, living with harmony and conservation of nature were the themes, and all these themes are helping in propagating the message that in our workplace, how we can improve the air quality. At our area when the water is polluted, how we can use the wetland. So all these things, these gases are there, and we as a health safety professional, we understand the critical outcome of these pollutants on our health. And it is very simple that the solution is in our hand, that how we can help and protect our life or our places. So this is, so I just quoting because of time paucity, I'm just explaining about these 3 plants. Money plant, everyone know that we mostly use in our offices, in our houses, and we also did the money plant with the money, that how much money you are having. This plant is one of the wonderful plant that which absorb the formaldehyde, xylene, toluene, benzene, and carbon monoxide. This indoor plant help in improving the air quality in your working space. Mother-in-law tongue plant is another very good plant because it has not required much of the care, and it is also found entire world. If you go to Africa, you go to Canada, you go to Australia, India, in any of the continent, you can find all these three plants. The spider plant is another one, which also absorbs the benzene, formaldehyde, and all these gases are accumulated from the furniture on which we are sitting, the doors, whatever we are using, and these gases are accumulating, and these are above the permissible limit, and these are the harmful for us. So with these small initiative at our workplace, we can improve the safety and the occupational health of the employee. Thank you very much. If you are having any question, we are open for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Heshmi. A very interesting and different perspective on environment and health. Moving forward, we have a quick announcement. We'll be doing a lucky draw at the end of the session, and few of the lucky attendees will be getting a surprise gift, which will be safely delivered to them. I would, at this juncture, be presenting our partner for this edition of ProMFG Think Circle, which is Flutura Technologies. With reduced workforce and declining margins, Vision Intelligence is going to play a vital role in the post-COVID industrial world. Flutura has joined hands with Intel to co-create Cerebra Vision, a video analytics solutions for industries. It utilizes video streams to detect anomaly occurrences in near real time. It uses AI and computer vision to create an eagle's eye view of 24/7 monitoring, and it enables health, safety, and environment compliance, automated visual inspection for quality checks, security and surveillance, productivity and operational efficiency. Cerebra Vision notifies concerned personnel for quick and efficient countermeasures. It further generates customized analytical reports across various plants, sites, and zones. We have a quick 2-minute movie of this solution for you. At this juncture, I would introduce my colleague Manish Kulkarni now. He is the director at ProMFG Media to take the session forward. Manish will be moderating today's panel discussion. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amita. And it's indeed a pleasure for us to be a part of this Industrial HSE Summit. And I thank all the participants to be here. And we have such a distinguished panel of speakers for this HSE Summit. And before I introduce the panel speakers, I would also like to resolve the mystery of the QR code, what you see on my left or Amita's left, is basically on your right, you will see it. The QR code is basically, if you're not followed us on LinkedIn, this particular QR code will take us to the LinkedIn page of ProMFG, and it's very vibrant and active, and we are sharing a lot of insights from various sectors. So please click on the QR code and follow us on LinkedIn. We have a pleasure of having Dr. S.P. Garg, who is currently the advisor HSE to GAIL India. Just a brief introduction: he has achieved his doctorate in safety management system. He's having an experience of over 36 years in the oil and gas industry, and he has been the former head and executive director of HSE at GAIL India. He co-chairs FICCI Committee on Disaster Management and is also on the board of governor at NSC, that is National Safety Council of India. He is the recipient of the President's Fire Service Medal for Meritorious Services. He currently serves, as I said, as an advisor HSE to GAIL India. Welcome, Mr. Garg, Dr. Garg.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Manish.
Yeah, we have the second panelist who is joined us from Chhattisgarh, Ms. Ashmita Das. Is currently the head of health and safety at ACC Limited Jamul plant, and she is a HSE and sustainability professional with a demonstrated history of working in aluminum and thermal sectors for more than 13 years in the operations as well as HSE field. We have the third panelist from Ultratech Cement, Mr. Kiran Kumar, who is the corporate head of safety at Ultratech. He has almost 2 decades of experience in health, safety and environment. And prior to his current position, he has worked with several organizations such as Vedanta, Saint-Gobain, Coromandel and Tata Rallies. The next panelist we have is Mr. Joshi John, and he has a rich experience of over 3 decades across a very wide spectrum of industries and services. He is a BTech in Civil Engineering and Masters in Occupational Health and Safety Management. He is passionate about safety and highly focused on protecting human lives and preventing accidents. He currently heads corporate safety at TCE Limited, Tata Consulting Engineers. The next panelist we have is Mr. Deepak Pandey, head of HSE at Deepak Fertilizers and Petrochemical Limited. Mr. Pandey is currently at Deepak Fertilizer, and before that he has 28 years of experience. Initial 4 years in the production and all other 25 years in the EHS as a EHS professional. He has previously worked in sectors such as petrochemical, fertilizer, fine chemicals, pharmaceuticals, agrochemicals and glass industries. The next panelist we have is the former Executive Vice President, Corporate Head of OHS with Jindal Steel and Power Limited, Mr. Ravikant Somani. He has over 3 decades of rich experience in managing occupational health and safety in various industries. He is the Master of Science in Chemistry by education and with a postgraduate diploma in industrial safety. Besides, he carries several specialized professional certified courses in his academic bag. We also have Dr. Hishmi join us. His introduction has already been done by Amita. He is from Tata Steel, so he will also join us as a panel speaker. We have about 40 minutes of time, so I'll be asking a couple of questions to each panelist, and I would request them to restrict their answers to 2 to 3 minutes each. And let me begin with a very good tone was set by the previous speakers, Mr. Jagtap and Mr. R.P. Singh and Dr. Hishmi Hussain. So I will first ask Dr. Garg about how do we develop shop floor level safety leadership, and what are the key attributes of leaders that make them successful in driving the safety culture?
Thank you, Mr. Manish. This is a very important question, and as you mentioned, for any system to develop, the leadership plays a very important role. And for especially shop floor level, if you want to make them convinced that they should follow the safety rules and regulations, the leader has to follow first. He has to walk the talk, he or she. As in the technical terms, we call it a fed leadership. There has to be display of fed leadership. The leader should be seen doing the right things, and the others should believe that he is doing right things. That means he is not only he should be seen, he should be believed also. He has to that kind of leadership traits in him, so that everybody believes that whatever he is doing is not fake. He really genuinely believes in those values. Because it is the leader who has to set the expectations, and the followers who believe in leadership, they follow him. For example, a plant head or an executive director or a director coming from a corporate office to a manufacturing site, he should be the first person to regard, respect all the safety rules, regulations. When he visits the site, he has to pay full attention to the requirement of PPEs and obey all the safety rules. And naturally, once the general population, the employees at the ground level see their seniors wearing the PPEs meticulously, they will automatically follow that. Now, when we say fed leadership, what is it? Fed leadership should have the qualities like it should be visible to the organization. The leader should be relentless about the time with his people. They should that leader should separate out the time in his schedule for the talking to the down below people. His role should be like a teacher or a trainer. As I mentioned, he should lead by example. He should also hold people accountable if somebody is not following the rules and regulations. And he should be very important that he should be very authentic in all his communications. And lastly, he should celebrate and recognize small successes. These are sort of some of the attributes of a good leader, and if he does that, I am sure it will have a great impact on the entire workforce.
Thank you, Dr. Garg. Very well said. A leader as a mentor and a coach and lead by example. I would take the same question with some addition to Sasmita. Sasmita, the attributes of leaders, you can always elaborate from your experience, and also the frameworks to develop the safety culture across the organization. Sasmita, over to you.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you. It's my privilege to be part of it. So, as per me, sir rightly said, safety is driven from the top management, and as a leader, it's utmost responsibility of a leader to set first the framework of a safety culture and framework of the safety management plan. First, we have to frame what are the policies should be there, and what will be the positive and negative consequences will be there, and what are the management plan need to be set at the site itself. So as a leader, first he should be led by the examples. Like sir said that visible fed leadership is very most important nowadays. When the leader is going to the shop floor, how he is interacting and how he is interacting with the people from experience, and instantly how he is recognizing the people. And as a leader, first we should demonstrate ourselves that we are following all the rules and regulations at the site. We are able to stop unsafe practices at the site, and how we can draw the attentions of the subfloor employees when we are at the site. And next, how we can manage the site, whether different cultures employees are deployed there. So how we are able to manage the culture, varieties of culture of the people, and how we will be managed to the people when they are at crisis positions. Example, in case of any emergency eventuality is there, how a leader will be able to handle the situations, that capacity should be there. And as a leader, he should be a good listener at the site. When we are interacting at the subfloor, when some employees or subfloor level employees, they are giving some suggestions, or how they are giving some suppose problems. So how we are listening to them and how we are resolving them and how quickly we are taking decision at the side, this is the utmost responsibility of a leader.
Yeah, thank you. Very well said, Sasmita. My next question to Mr. Deepak Pandey is about, there are, of course, rules, regulations, legislation that drive compliance. And more than that, inspiring people is so important. And for that, engaging with them is so crucial. I would request Deepak Pandey, please provide leadership insights for effectively engaging employees in safety.
Sorry for the interruptions. So setting the safety attributes in everybody's KRA, it is the utmost. Then the final will be, as a leader, how we are managing the site when we are at the shop floor. So I will more emphasis about the safety core value. So nowadays, as we are dealing with the business, safety should be the core values of business. So when talking about productions, we are talking about the business. First, we should start from the safety. So as nowadays we are practicing safety toolbox talk at the side. Before any job, we are starting toolbox talk at the side. So as a leader, he also start everything should incorporate from safety, and every business or every discussions we are planning, it should be starting from the safety. So these are the some key attributes of a leader, how he is taking the lead, leading the site, leading the shop floor and leading the team. And now coming to the second question.
I will come to you, Sasmita, after I finish with the other round of questions. Deepak Pandeyji, the question is about providing leadership insights. Sasmita, I will get back to you with the next question. Deepakji, you can start.
Please. Yeah, no problem. No, it's okay. That's fine. So good evening all. I think a lot of insight is already given on various aspects, but yes, inspiring people is always a trump card for any organization to be successful. And this is not like a rocket science. It's very simple thing. If you go to the simple principle of getting people engaged, is basically you have to basically see that they are getting a kind of recognition. See, recognition is always not in the form of money, not always in the form of something. It's like a luxurious thing, but it is basically appreciating people at the right time, at the right moment, and at the right location. If you can do that, you get inspired employees. They get engaged. There are small tricks and things which we can do as a appreciating way. Like whenever you find somebody is doing some right job, just appreciate him. If as a company, in our company, what we have done to develop a kind of engagement, and engagement ensures development of culture. To develop a culture, we started small activities, and I'm sure many organizations are doing that. What we are doing is not something new. Like we started recognizing employees on various parameters. Say we decided a couple of aspects, like a zero goal. One of the things what Jagtap sir has said. So we started with the various initiatives. Like every month, we recognize not only employee but also contractor employees, and it is in the ratio of 1:2. Suppose I am appreciating one employee in a month for one particular dimension of safety, then I am at least appreciating 2 contractor employees in that direction. See, because my contractor employees are my major chunk of people who are really doing a job which is having high potential of improvement. So we started with Safety Man of the Month. Then we started with Contractor Safety Man of the Month. Then we started an initiative with near miss reporting. So we started appreciating people. We started an initiative that maximum near miss who will report more than 5, you will get some recognition. if you are sending a near miss which is selected as the best near miss, so you will be appreciated for the best near miss. We are also have set a target that every employee need to hit a target in a year for number of training hours, and he should perform and deliver a test at the end of year after hitting that magical number. So last year it was like a 12 hours for it was 24 hours. This year it is 24 hours. So once people achieve that is recorded, and then we recognize that person with trophy, with his name being displayed at the main gate on a digital board with photographs and all the stuff. So that gives a lot of engagement in the people. It creates a competitive atmosphere where financial gains are not important, but the self-pride, engagement, ownership, belongingness, that really creates a lot of competitive spirit in other employees also. Because once that name is displayed, once in our town hall meeting, when this name, his photograph is displayed, and when a senior person, like sometimes CMD, very occasionally presidents, business presidents are taking their name, appreciating them, so that gives a lot of value, and that creates a lot of competitive spirit, and everybody tries and starts working on that direction, and that leads to having a safe work atmosphere from the point of view of actions and conditions. So these are small things. I think everybody can try, and I'm sure what I said will help everybody to look from that perspective, rather than thinking that it is something a big rocket science. Let's look at small things. Let's stick to fundamental and address the issue.
Absolutely.
I think that is all I want to say. If there is anything I have missed, there are panel members are there who can really help me.
Yeah. Thank you, Deepakji. It was very well answered. What we also request the audience is to post your questions in the Q&A box, and if the time permits, we shall ask the questions to the panelists. So please also post who the question is addressed to in the Q&A box, not in the chat box, and we shall address it. Otherwise, we will take it offline, the questions which are unanswered, and we'll answer it on ProMFG Media portal later. Now, let me take the same question on engaging employees in safety to Mr. Ravikant Somani. Mr. Ravikant Somani, would you please give your insights on this, please?
Thank you very much. It's my favorite question, by the way. Everybody can hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, it's my favorite question, by the way, and coincidentally it has come to me along with other speakers also. So very good insight by all these speakers. No, my problem is different actually. My problem is not to inspire the workers, not to inspire the shop floor peoples. My problem is basically to inspire the management. Whether everybody is agree to it or not?
Yes.
Yeah, the issue is basically, I would like to see a company where a program is designed and where the program appreciation program is designed in such a way that best director who is involved in the safety is given a trophy. I want to see a company in this India, whether some company is there, whether he has designed they have designed a program where one of the director or the chairman of the company is being gifted or maybe awarded or appreciated on a forum that he is dedicated to the safety. The moment these people start dedicating themselves for the safety, the workforce is very easy to inspire. I'm telling you, the inspiring workforce, you have 100 means and ways to inspire the workforce to follow the safety. You have everything in your hands. You can ask a worker that if you are not following, please go away from this site. I don't want you at this site. Whether a safety officer or any person who is designing these safety programs for the organizations have the courage to say one of the director, you are not following, please go away from this site. The problem is that this in India actually. So we have done a lot of work in that with little success. I say that whatever the programs we have designed in various organizations are 100% successful. No, yes, but we brought people in line. That I can say in my tenure of 35 years, wherever I have worked, we tried. Just give me some. Let me give some of the examples on this aspect. You know, in one of the recently I gave a post on the LinkedIn, And Joshi also gave a very humorous post on the LinkedIn regarding that. No, it is a madness on the construction site, right, Joshi ji? You are aware. And I posted one post on the LinkedIn that the safety week starts from today, and these are the bitter truth. There are so many things we have wrote. See, how many times I will ask a question from all the panelists and all the audience, those who are listening us, how much efforts you need to invite a CEO or a person who is heading your organization to come in your National Safety Day concluding function in time. How much efforts you take into that? How much efforts the people are taking to collect the manpower there, to collect the crowd there, so that your function will become successful. Sometimes you put security, sometimes you barricade the area, sometimes you close the gate and ask your volunteers that stop everybody, they should go that. So where is the inspiration, my dear friends? Where is the things are coming from the heart? So problem in the Indian industry is basically the fire in the belly is not there. So we need the real requirement in India is basically, and real role of the safety officer and the safety heads in India is basically to create the fire in the belly of the top management people. Whether he is a chairman, whether he is a managing director, whether he is a CEO, who's over these people are there. If you are able to increase the fire, increase the hunger towards the safety in these guys, then your system will improve. So my worry is basically shop floor. It's very easy to involve them. You give gifts, as Deepak ji has told, and Jagtap also has told that you can do a lot of things. You can make the non-negotiable rules, life-saving rules, and then you enforce them. Sometimes you put penalties, sometimes you appreciate them, sometimes you observe the behavior, talk to them, and show them that we are concerned about your safety, your life is very important. So many things you can do. But issue is basically how to inspire the leadership, how to inspire those people, those who are sitting on the top. Actually, that is very important. And I would like to. And I would like to listen from other speakers also that how we can all together.
I would love to take this particular point, and also the question about engaging employees across the organization in safety, and this particular point by Mr. Somani to Dr. Garg. Dr. Garg, would you like to please elaborate on this?
It's a very difficult question posed by Mr. Somani. He was to give the answer. He has posed a question. Anyway, so let me try to give my experience on it. There is no doubt it is quite difficult, because I believe the top management is busy with other more important jobs. They have to address their important stakeholders first. But giving the how we brought in the top management into the safety management. Some examples I will give. When we realized in 2013, way back, while I was in KL heading HSC department, that there are some issues which we are not actually exposed to. Some gaps in the safety management system, and that could be probably starting from the top leadership or the middle level leadership. Then I talked to the chairman and directors that there is some gap I feel, and I want a guest lecturer to be invited from abroad, and you spare 2 hours time, and then the next level, that is EDs and GMs, will spend 4 hours time in a closed door and discuss the safety management system only. To my good luck, the chairman agreed, and once chairman agreed, the other directors also agreed. And we had a closed room discussion for about 2 hours on how to implement in a best possible way the safety management system in the organization, so that wherever small incidents here and there are seen, they should be not seen, and we should overall improve the safety management. So I had invited one gentleman from British Safety Council UK, and then 2 hours closed session. After that session, we came up with the conclusion that even though we have best of technology, best of processes, best of the safety managers to say, and best of the processes, still we needed, there is some gap, and that gap is behavioral intervention. that came out very clearly and was accepted by all the directors and chairmen also. Behavioral intervention right from the CEO to the bottommost person, that was required to be brought in the organization. It was agreed that it will be brought in. And that is how we got the approval for engaging a consultant from outside. And we brought in BBS in the organization from 2013. We decided that in 3 segments of main business, that is gas processing units, petrochemicals and pipeline installations, we'll take one by one, and across the organization we will carry it on. So I'll take 2 more minutes to emphasize on this point. Then thereafter, the baseline study was done. We found that about 65% safe behavior could be seen at our sites. That means 35% unsafe behavior is also seen. So challenge was to change that behavior, unsafe behavior, to safe behavior. And then we, with the help of consultant, we started rolling out the BBS concept, made the lead trainers, gave them 5 days training, made the observers, and then we wrote the protocol how to roll it out across the company, and then engaged the local leadership at a site along with the HODs who were made in a a committee, localized committee, to monitor the BBS and made a software and other things. So in a period of 3 years, when we rolled it out across the organization and we further measured it, we could make quite a good progress, about 90% or so. So management realized that it's a behavior-based intervention, and then the behavior of the top leaders was also addressed. It was decided that every month there will be a monthly safety day on 10th of every month. A date was picked up, and wherein half day all the site leaders will only review the safety management system. They will review the safety audit points, safety measures, everything related to safety, half day along with all the HODs. And there will be a structured report generated and sent to the corporate office. And end of the month, last week of the month, 2 functional directors from the board, they will come and review the safety preparedness exceptions across the company and take all the CEOs, EDs and GMs on the VC and ask them directly why these gaps, why you have not followed up for early, say, liquidation of a safety audit points and like that. And then that report started going to the chairman, and every quarter chairman and his board level subcommittee of safety started reviewing it. It made so much of impact that within a short period, we saw that 4 years continuously on TOT, there was not a single reportable incident. All the HODs and the in charges started talking about safety, and the message was very loud and clear.
Very nice. Dr. Garg, thank you for that elaborate answer. I will change the track now slightly to encompass the whole ecosystem or the other stakeholders. And my question to Mr. Kiran Kumar from Ultratech Cement is about the fact that a lot of organizations are focusing on the core business and they tend to outsource some of the O&M, operation and maintenance work of certain section or the plant or the process to outside contractors and temporary workforce. So Mr. Kiran Kumar, what are the best practices to ensure that the safety culture is percolated across the whole ecosystem to cover all the stakeholders?
Yeah. Thanks, Manish. Good to be part of Pro FMG team and good to connect also with colleagues. I think that was one of the thing which seems to be the way forward for the manufacturing sector, where the contract workforce day in day out, they are increasing in each manufacturing sector. If you see that the current trend, it started from 50% to 70-30, even some of the businesses moved to even 80 to 50%. Even for my Ultratech, you see that we are at 65 to 35%. So that means 65% contract workforce and 35% would be of the permanent workforce. And then there is a key focus. I think you have mentioned in your question that there are 2 elements, main elements. One would be about related to the cost reduction for the end product to compete in the market, and then second thing is that focus only on the key manufacturing or the intent of production. So because of that, there are some challenges. So I would say that to keep that motto, and that is inevitable, to in that context, the challenges and then the best practices, because I worked in India and then supported Europe, Asia, and in my past career with the Africa continent. So wherever you go, irrespective of the either the developed, undeveloped, or developing countries, more or less you can see the safety trade same, one and same. I think Ravikant bang on that particular subject. Whichever country you go, that's a main aspect related to safety. That fundamental thing what I could see in my career while working with the last 15 years in the corporate world with India and abroad. The fundamental thing what I've seen that a couple of senior people they didn't have got an opportunity to understand the behavioral aspect of the safety. Most of the people could be related to the accountants or maybe from the top university. They did not get an opportunity to understand that the base of that particular pyramid, the safety pyramid what we see. So they try to touch upon immediately that the top corner of the pyramid. Whenever they see any spike on the top, lagging indicator, then they will try to react. That's one thing. So coming back to these contractor safety, the best practices, I would say that there are so many things, but best of my knowledge, I've seen two things which actually works for us in Indian continent. That is contractor safety management and safety observation. See, contractor safety management, again, it's again a big subject, but there are 6 elements in that, which actually talks from which explains about from the pre-qualification to the preparation, bidding, then awarding the contract, training, and then to the auditing, and then the review of the entire the particular project cycle or the particular part of the contractor. If you see that 6 elements, there are some of the best practices. I don't want to elaborate everything because the panel, the experts who are there in this particular thing, but what the practice actually is working for us, it seems to be that one is that we made certain things in such a way that when you do the pre-bidding, that time had a checklist that is common to everyone, but the set point for us is that greater than 85%. So when you want to shortlist a contractor, because unless and until you identify a contractor who can come and work with you, unless and until you understand your goals and aspirations of the safety practices and the expectation, it may not be possible for you to calculate it. The set benchmark internally is that unless and until you get greater than 80%, then only you will be shortlisted. There are set questions, and again there are evidences required for them. What we say that if somebody is working with us, the best practice would be that they need to have a supervisor for every 30 workers, what they while engaging with UltraTech. That is point number 1. And the second thing is that 1:50 ratio we have made stewards, safety steward. Then 1:100 ratio or up to the 300 ratio, 1:300 ratio, we made compulsory of having the safety officer. These are some of the best practices which were brought as a contractor front. And then apart from there are a number of things in CSM. We do the internal called CFSA, contractor field safety audits, where we actually ask line team to go and spend at least 2 audits in a week for the high risk areas. That is again through subcommittee mechanism what we have internally, so that at least you will come to know that what is happening, and then they are given very freedom to report the any kind of violations or the non-compliances. That has been again reflected in the severity index of the contractor. The severity index contractor is considered as reviewed very serious for the senior level, at the unit level, and then it goes to the company level, and then once in 2 months it goes to the MD level. So that's what the sequence what we have. So the best practice, I would say that awarding the contract to the internal processes, and then to monitor those things to the internal auditing system. You can say it as the different terminologies. What we use is CFSA. Other companies may use different terminology. Outcome of that one would be the severity index. That is one of the best parameter, which clearly talks about that way that contractor stands against your requirement. Then you need to have some motivational kind of thing. You need to award system, reward system. Those things are there part of it. So one example I'd like to quote that instead of having the script. So one of the critical element in the cement manufacturing is that cleaning of silos is one of the critical. So we operate around 44 kilns in India. Apart from abroad operations, we have 55 manufacturing. There are 16 projects are going on now. So 2 years back, we have awarded 80 silos to be cleaned. So when we have called for a different bidders, and there are 6 bidders who are available in India, there is only the limited number. And then when you want to evaluate those people, again, we have gone through the entire process. And then the particular process, we came to know that based on the track record, because based on the previous history of those contractors, there is a challenge with them. So then it has forced us to go to the L2 and L3. So there is no from management side. When you have established processes, it facilitates you to move to the right direction. That's the point which I'm trying to explain. Point number 1. And second thing is that there is a challenge in the safety management, which I agree with Ravi, that the system-oriented versus the people-oriented. The biggest challenge in Indian continent is that people try to avoid the system, and people, as and when top bosses change, they try to bring that, especially the CEO level kind of people, they try to bring their own kind of system. That's what actually is damaging the thing. So for the best practice kind of thing, I would recommend that if you have a standard CSM, systematic CSM, if you integrate with SAP, then definitely it will sustain for longer period. Because irrespective of the person who comes and goes at the top management, moving on, there will be pressure on L1, L2, but broadly the system works for you, and then there is a ways and means to manage the thing. I can give one classical example which is available in public domain, that in 2017-18 financial year we have done one greenfield project. Even today we are doing the greenfield project. That particular project, it is an Indian, it is in a cement industry history that was completed 12 months from the scratch to the completion of the production, from the mines to the end product. It was done within 12 months without having a last time injury. Followed pure CSM processes. Yes, there is a commitment from the top management. They spend the time, and then we could able to deliver it. Yeah,
zero LTI.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what one of the track record of what we have. Touchwood, last yes, we don't have any last time injuries in even projects. Apart from the process, the existing.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is interesting. I mean, record time and zero LTI, it's a great achievement. And I would request Mr. Deepak Pandey's views on this before I move to the next topic on percolation of safety across.
What Kiran sir has said is something really admirable, I would say. The kind of result he has achieved. In our organization, probably we have not achieved this kind of in short term such good result. But after listening to him, I will certainly try to work on that front also. What actually, with respect to this O&M related contractor, yes, bidding system we are also doing, and I think you rightly said this program really helps you to get right kind of people on board, and our expectations are made clear well ahead when they are coming on the board. So really that is a good program, and I think whosoever is listening over here certainly should think about it, and if they have not got this kind of system, certainly we are here to help them, guide them if at all required. Once again, I will say safety is not a rocket science. It's basically a simple common sense, because safety is about people and for the people. So when it is about the people and for the people, it is not a big deal. We have to understand psychology of the person. And for contractor getting engaged, and when it is said that these are my O&M persons, and how to develop the culture, again I will say you have to see that one point Kiran ji has touched on, but I think he has not elaborated on that, is observation. Yes, if you know, it is somewhere it is called as stop, somewhere it is called as observation. But if you while you are walking, and as a principle of value-based leadership, VFL, if you demonstrate that you are also following few things, and when you are observing them, you are appreciating, and parallelly when you are finding something is they are missing, you are talking to them, giving them some time, maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and it really counts like anything, because for them a senior person, a leadership person, going in the plant, observing him, talking to him for a few minutes, trying to understand his pain and trying to tell him why it is important and how you should do it, and assuring that whatever support is required. So really that helps. And the contractual related terms, they only need this kind of intervention, this kind of support, and this kind of motivation. And I think that is all. I'm not adding much on this.
Yes, I would move to Mr. Joshi John, and I will go to the topic of the initial topic, what was mentioned about measuring safety, driving the safety culture. How do you measure the safety culture, and what are the parameters to measure? Are there any leading or lagging indicators? So I would request Mr. Joshi John to answer this in brief, and I will ask the same question to Susmita after you finish.
Well, thank you, for having me as one of the panel speakers. Before I talk about leading and lagging, I just wanted to add on to what Mr. Ravikant talked about leadership. Just a couple of incidents which I had personally experienced. It was in one of these National Day, Safety Day celebrations at the inauguration. So I was new. I was working in the Middle East. I came to India. So this is the first time that I was exposed to this. And the inaugural function was happening, and everybody is looking for the construction head. He did not come, and his name was there in the program, etc. And I was wondering what happened. That's when I realized, one of the other colleagues over there said, you should have made a printed invitation and gone and given to him personally and asked him to come for the occasion. I got a shock because I came from a culture where you just send an email out to everybody and it is accepted. You know what was my answer? I told him, please go tell him it's not my daughter's wedding that I have to come to his cabin and invite him for the program. He is the leader here. He doesn't want to come. It just shows that safety is not in his directory at all. And I was very candid in this. So he was a bit embarrassed. So at the valedictory function, 2 days before the valedictory itself, he sent me a mail saying, Josie, I am on leave and I will not be in office that day. So please excuse me for it. No, like kind of taking an anticipatory bail. But that changed that person. He really understood what it means to be a leader in safety. So I would say that this is what it requires, to take it up at that level and put it into them. Put the knife into them and make them squirm with the whole thing.
And, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but a very good thing which is coming in my mind, I would like to speak at this moment actually. Whether this gentleman who has not come to your function even after the formal invitation, whether he wait for this kind of invitation when some problem is there in the plant and production is not there. In that case, he will rush, he will run by leaving everything. Even he will leave the.
I'll tell you, there was a fatality on the site. And his question was, what was the safety steward and safety officer doing? My reply was, you sent an email that tomorrow at 10:35 a.m. somebody is going to fall down. Please be ready to catch him at the bottom. Conceal the issue. Some people need to be addressed in this manner. The second incident was when I was much junior, years back when I was in the Middle East. There was a new general manager, a gentleman named James Masterton. He had taken over the operations. And it was the first day, and that's a practice to have reverse parking. And at every parking slot is written reverse parking only. But he just drove in and he came up to the office. I was on my rounds and I saw that the board he was not reverse parked. What do I do? First day he's at his workplace, he has not even met with the entire team. I said, no way, since I'm a safety officer here, I have to go in. So I knocked at his door, he said, come in. He said, sir, we follow reverse parking here and your car is not reverse parked. He said, really? How do I know that? I said, there's a board over there. Okay, let me go and see. He immediately went down and reversed his car and came back. And then he told me, you seem to be a troublemaker. And then I said, sir, I'm not a troublemaker, I'm doing my job. And then he said, no, I'm saying that you're a troublemaker because you are doing your job in the correct manner. You had the guts to come and speak to the highest official in this organization. And I have a great respect for you for that. So we need to, have this kind of a character form within the not the organization, at the lower level, at the safety officers. That is how we build up the culture within an organization, and that is what is very much lacking. Is what I have experienced in all these years over the place. So put it where it matters. Hit the nail on the head and make them bleed, and that's when you will really see things happening. Okay, I might be sacked from my job, but that doesn't matter. But the same person who did not cover safety function. Recently, he called me up and said, Josie, I need your help. I said, so what happened? I've got some problem. I've not been in touch with you for many. I've got a problem with safety. And I know you are the only person who can help me. I said, thank you very much, sir, for remembering me. It's an honor, So this is what we need to drive as a safety culture. Now, coming to Manish's question, it's a very important aspect, whether it's National Safety Day, you reward and recognition systems. But what I always seen is that it's more of a namesake kind of a thing. He says it's just let's do it. It's not part of the larger safety culture. And I've been consulting engineers. We offer a training service. Your Safety DNA is a one-day program, and I don't call that session on monitoring, review, or rewarding. I call it as how do you celebrate your safety success? What are the parameters that you want to put in? You always need to think out of the box rather than how many accidents has happened, how many near misses have been reported. It has to go beyond that. You need to have a very independent observation of how safe behavior actually happens on that side. Now, not having an accident is by chance in most of the cases. In most of the cases, not necessarily because you have the best of procedures in the place. It is good to have procedures, but how much of it people have taken it to heart. And this is where the real change comes in. And this is where you have to decide on what should be the indicators on which you want to celebrate your success. And organizations individually need to develop their own system. And not just, I see this, what are they, just before the National Safety Day or week, you'll find WhatsApp messages, please share a program, what should be done during the National Safety Week. And the saddest part, it is safety professionals who ask for this, they do not even know what they have to contribute towards safety in their own organization. It's just another copy-paste. This copy-paste is what is a detriment to develop a good safety culture.
Great.
Very correct.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Susmita, I had interrupted you during the first question. Could you please continue with your answer, because I wanted to ask you at this time. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Quickly in 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Coming to the safety culture, sir, I was elaborating that safety culture should be at the shop floor like that. If no one is there also at the site, people should follow. People should able to follow all the safe practices at the site. So coming to the leading and lagging indicator factors to measure the safety culture, sir, we are having the leading indicator like giving awareness, trainings, then some recognitions program, awards. All those will be covered under the leading indicator to create a base at the subfloor level. And coming to the lagging indicators are anything we do, if at the end, if we are having some incidents at the site, then we can say that we are having the negative safety culture at the site and people are not behaving safe. So in terms of negative or lagging indicators are in terms of absenteeism rate, if people are sick for the period and some people are not able to attend the duty at the time. So these are the lagging indicators in the safety culture, which clearly shows that the safety culture is not a positive, means it is the negative safety culture we are setting. So we should be focused on the proactive safety approach and how to set the behavior part of the people. So normally, I believe the most of the unsafe practices are being done by the workers who are, I can say, unskilled employees are basically at the site, software employees. So how to engage with them and how to correct their behaviors, how to motivate them to behave as to follow all the rules and regulations, how to behave safely at the software. So in this way, we can motivate the employees and we can implement more and focus more and more on behavior part of the employees. So these are the leading indicators factors which each and every leaders, each and every subfloor employees should participate at the subfloor level.
Absolutely. And we need more women leaders in safety, industrial safety like you. Thank you so much, Susmita. Thank you so much. I have one last question to Ravikant, Somani, Joshi John and Kiran Kumar. But before that question is about advanced technologies in managing safety. Before that, I would like in 2 minutes, Dr. Hishmi Hussein's views on, he did a great presentation. Thank you, sir, for giving a different angle of biodiversity to the safety, industrial safety side. How should safety leaders understand and navigate the growing role of sustainability in corporate life? Dr. Hishmi Hussain, please. In 2 minutes.
Thank you. It is something very important that when we are talking about the sustainability and the safety, the people life and people health is the joint factor towards a sustainable future or future which we are building. So as my colleagues has talked and they have showed that there are the challenges. Now there is the external pressure is happening that there must be a sustainability. And sustainability is something that which is preparing us for the tomorrow. So whatever we are doing, whatever we are trying to achieve it could be in a way that it has a larger impact. And for the safety professional, I think it is very good thing that most of the time it is a top to bottom approach. The senior leadership agree and then the things are happening. because many times, as other colleagues has told, it is simpler and easy to implement the safety culture at the shop floor, but it is difficult to impress or to encourage the senior leadership. But what is my experience, and I have this in the Rio Tinto as well as at Tata Steel, that the senior leadership is more committed towards the sustainability and safety and whatever the new is happening in the world. When the senior leadership support is coming, then the things are translating very quickly and very simply. When we want to develop the sustainability or the safety leadership among the people, it is important they must give in some of the awareness trainings. Then they realize the importance of their work, and they also connect their contribution for the sustainability. So this is my bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Hishmi Hussain. Thank you so much. Now, the last question is about the use of advanced technologies in managing safety. There is safety automation, robotics, video analytics, as our partner Futura is into, or use of IIoT and digitalization. I would request Mr. Ravikant Somani, Mr. Kiran Kumar and Joshi John in this sequence to answer this in a minute each. If quickly you can answer, because we are running short of time. First, Mr. Ravikant Somani.
Sure. Yeah. Good. So you see, the use of technologies in the field of health, safety, and environment is playing very important role nowadays, and and these technologies are helping in improving the safety in all the organizations. There is no doubt about it. But ultimately, again, my question comes actually the what input we are giving to these technologies, whether it is a SAP EHS model, whether it is various platforms are available, various manufacturer suppliers are available in the market, those who give the solutions to this. Just will share one example for the compliance of legal requirements in one of my organizations, ex-organizations, a very renowned consultant of India and abroad. They came and they gave us the solution that this is how you can monitor the compliance, whether you are complying with the statutory requirement or not. So they make compliance managers and then central compliance managers and all this in very big organizations they gave the software and we started putting. Now point is whether the input which we are giving in this software or that forum correct or not, whether we are giving the quality inputs to it, whether we are doing the compliance in the field and then we are saying yes, this is compliant, or just for the sake of fulfilling that forum we are filling it compliant. So it is garbage in, garbage out. Technologies are very important to make the life easy. These platforms are very important for compilation and consolidation of the data and coming to a conclusion that where we are lacking. This is very good, but my point again it is whether the commitment is there in the organization that the quality inputs we are giving to those softwares. As Kiran has told that contractor safety management, he elaborated very nicely. So I don't think at this stage after that much progress in the safety there is any organization where the contractor safety management manual is not there, whether the parameters are not defined, whether the conditions of contracts are not defined. All organizations are having that. Point is what is the percentage of implementation? So technologies are very important, but again point is whether we are adapting these technologies by heart, with a fire in our belly, with full commitment. Yes, this is basically a database which give us where we are lacking, which we have not done, but at the same time whether we are giving the right input to these forums or not. That is my point.
So can I take?
Yes, please, Kiranji.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Ravi. So I would like to add a couple of points here, especially related to the digital journey. I would like to make a few real-time things what we have done during this pandemic. Because pre-pandemic was entirely completely different thing, but during pandemic it has forced us to come up with a complete solution. So there are a couple of solutions which are available, which are good done, but out of that 4 which we were able to do successfully, which I would like to touch upon. There is a chatbot which we thought that typically chatbot is very much appreciated and well established in the grocery sector and the banking sector. However, for our industry, normally in safety fraternity, chatbot system was not. That was one of the things which we have seen, because last 4 years we have acquired 3 major companies, and then a couple of projects have been both brownfield and greenfield projects were brought in between, so that there are a huge number of people joining our organization. One is that coming from outside, and at the same time people are going out, maybe superannuated from the company. With all those combinations, we could see that a big surge of new people are coming into the system. It is very, very difficult to maintain the track and as well as to provide that safety awareness to those people to the required level. That is the big challenge what we have seen. So from that, out of that, the solution what we could able to get it is the chatbot. So the chatbot which we could able to establish in UltraTech, now in last 3 months, we could able to see that there are 6,000 questions have been asked by the employees in the chatbot. That means if I don't have the chatbot, there are big number of percentage of unknown things that might have there in the employees. Probably they are shy to ask the question. Sometimes they may not able to connect the safety for other people. Now at least they could able to, with a matter of 2 seconds, just log in and then type it, whatever they want to know about a particular figure. Typically each document may have 15 to 20 pages. They may not have time to read. They may not able to recollect those what they have read. But this is the one intervention which we are doing digitally. Irrespective of the person who is going to be that much that is going to live for a longer period. The second thing is that assurance was the one of the big thing. Like we have 55 manufacturing and then 102 ready-mix concrete in India. So now how I'm going to give assurance to the board? That is the biggest challenge. For assurance is one of the big subject. Okay, in pre-pandemic, there is a process whether internally or you can hire a third party, you can come and visit it and do it as per the protocol. But during pandemic, we could able to come out with a solution called virtual safety. That's the first of its kind in India, which we have done successfully. Basically, these gadgets are available only in the US. That's what we could say when we evaluated the products, whatever is available in the market. Typically, this has been developed for the remote inspections, not for the audit purpose. But however, we bought one product from the US and then we took a trial. Couple of things has been evaluated. Out of that, one we have agreed to evaluate for 2 months, and then we could able to customize for our assurance model, how it can be done, and then how we need to take it forward for the company. So now, last 8 months, we could able to do 12 such audits with internal people without having any third-party intervention. But however, way forward, we are going to do 47 sites in the phase 1 next to April 5th onwards with the using called that product called RealWare. That's another intervention which we have seen. Then the reports the way you can interact wherever you sit in the world. You can interact with through MS Teams. You can interact with the guy who is carrying that gadget. You can see the plant. You can interact with the contract workman. You can have a chat with that guy. You can check with him what he understands. You can take mock drill. You can take the video. You can take the photos. You can generate an outcome of the report is better than the physical audit. That's what we could able to do it. The third intervention what we have done is that speech to text, which is actually under just we are completing the particular project. The majority of the challenge what we are seeing with the line team is that why those people are not accepting safety is a core element because of I would say I don't say that as a safety professional it's a paper documentation related issue, but there is an bottom the this thing there's an issue with that particular point that whatever they see they need to come back and report and all. They are not familiar with that. They are not actually focused towards that. So typically in any organization they may be having inspection like for in our organization each employee has to spend some time in the plant apart from the safety observation. We need to write down what he had seen. It could be unsafe condition, it could be related to non-compliance to the safety standard. The point is that he spent 1.5 hours. So the challenge is that how we are going to improve the productivity at the same time, we no need to compromise on the safety. So outcome of that particular thing is called speech to text walkthrough inspection. So the gadget, only the employee has to get the gadget, and then whatever he sees, whatever he observes, only need to communicate to the gadget. The gadget will convert the speech to the text. You can take the video, you can take the photo, and then simply it will directly go back to the company server. No need to have any intervention. No need to come back and write down anything. So that's what we could able to do. Is another intervention which we could able to do successfully, so that I can improve the productivity at the same time. Employee also happy. You can track that where that guy is going. Because normally whenever you visit the plant, you see a number of issues. But people say that no, I spend a lot of time in the plant. But to this, at least you can know that who is going there, how much time he is spending, and what are those left out areas. Is another thing. The fourth intervention I would like to highlight is the VEDA. There is a video-enabled analytics. That's what everyone is talking about. So what we have done that the critical areas now we started internally through ABC Corporate digital team. We have done this particular exercise which we could able to do it some 6 months back. We have done that POC, proof of the concept, and then we have to establish a couple of units. Now we are expanding the same thing. 6 months. The idea is that especially the load centers is one of the critical area for the electrical plant for the cement business. But typically you will have 15 to 25 load centers in the plant from the crusher to the plant. The challenge for is that we don't know exactly that who are all going inside and how they are performing the task, because you can have control at gate entry. You can have certain things where you can administrative controls, or you can through some mechanism where you can only allow the guy who was supposed to go inside, otherwise the people. But after that, beyond that, you may not be knowing exactly whether he is adhering to the PP or not. Through video analytics, now we could able to see the ArcFlash especially, that LT and HT side, 8 cal and 40 cal, whether that fellow is really adhered to that it or not. It will be notified to the SMS or to the emailer with the photograph, or it will have an announcement so that employee can be corrected then and there. Similarly, for hot material, along with other key safety parameters which we are doing this one. So these are the 4 interventions which I could see that we have successfully been able to establish those things. But that seems to be the way forward. Otherwise, what will happen? It is not possible for any leader to in the plant to understand what is happening in the entire company. So collectively, you need to move on to see that how we can able to leverage these technologies to bring back to the safety into the real life, and then how we can improve the culture across. Yeah.
Very well said, Kiran. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Joshi John, your words on robotics especially and advanced technologies in safety.
Technology keeps changing every day. Now, I am from the construction background, and we know that construction in the early days was purely manual, people carrying stuff on the head or digging. But then we found slowly that mechanization, cranes are coming, earth moving equipment, a lot of equipment came in, and that brought about a huge change, even hand tools, power tools. What I just want to, my esteemed other panelists were talking more about the data collection management system, etc., which is happening all over and which has also facilitated safety management because large amounts of data comes in and you're able to process it in a quicker way. I'm going to specifically talk about something where robotics is now involved into the construction industry. Just a couple of weeks back, or a couple of months back, I met up with a gentleman who has actually designed a robot which can do masonry work. And this is the first time in India that we have something like that. And according to the demo which I saw, I physically went and saw the machine also. In 20 seconds, it can take and place a block in place. Now just imagine the amount of savings of time, forget about safety, that a contractor will have. And the wastage of material also gets down. Now, when you look at the safety perspective, you are taking away a human being involved in carrying out that activity. You still need to control the robot, but he'll have a control which he can stand far away from the robot and he can be a robot handler. He will not be treated as a skilled worker, but somebody who needs some special skills. And this is what is actually going to revolutionize the construction industry, the kind of speed at which we have to do construction today. So much so that robot is now out commercially. They are now found some buyers and the big players in the market have bought them. And soon you'll find robots available inside buildings. You'll be wondering what this robot is doing. And they have developed something else, which is to lay tiles on the floor. Now, any building requires a lot of tiles. And that is also a very laborious job, time-consuming job. People have to carry it. You have ergonomic issues, back pain, etc. In the same way, they're also looking at and developing a machine for a robot for plastering. So I think these 3 kind of robots is going to really revolutionize the construction industry quite a bit. And being a construction man, I'm 110% voting for it. And in fact, some of the projects that we are handling, I've been talking to the contractors to start considering it. And in one of the bigger contractors in India, I've already teamed up with them to take it out on their site. What I'll do is I'll put the link to their product on the company on the chat box. So those who want to have a look at it can definitely have a look at it so that they can come up later on and see what can be, whether they want to get in touch with them and
thank you, sir.
Take it further.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and I thank all the panelists for their participation and sharing useful insight. There are several questions from the audience for which we unfortunately don't have time, but we have noted down those questions and we shall take the answers from the panelists and put it on our portal promfgmedia.com.
Talking about technology, we have I think everyone likes doing polling, so another short poll.
Yes, the poll is on your screen. How much machine vision help EHS teams to take the company towards goal 0? And there are 4 options. You have 15 seconds to vote, and I'll close the poll and share the results. I'm ending the poll now, and here are the results. the majority, of course, is believe that is a game changer for machine vision, is a game changer for safety teams. Thank you for casting your votes. I'll stop sharing the results now, and shall I run the third poll question, Amita?
Yes, you can. It's a matter of 10 seconds. More insights, more better.
Yeah. The question is, my biggest hurdle with machine vision for safety is the technology is new or not and not reliable. It's difficult to prove the ROI. Too much investments required for the infrastructure. Complicated user interface is the last choice. Another 10 seconds to go. I'll close the poll now. And here are the results on your screen. 35% believe that investment is required, which is on the higher side for the infrastructure. 31% feel it's difficult to prove the ROI. So it is both the things are related to the initial cost. I'll stop sharing the results and over to Amita.
Thank you, Manish. So we come to the lucky draw. The 3 selected winners randomly are Miss Aparna K, Mr. Snehashish Banerjee, and Mr. Animesh Bajpai. Congratulations.
Great. Congratulations to the winners.
You will receive your special present safely, and hopefully it will add to your career as well. Finally, I would like to thank all the speakers, panelists, and the attendees for taking time out and attending today's event. I hope you found the sessions insightful and enriching. We will be sharing the insights and learnings on our portal www.promfgmedia.com. We'll also be sharing the answers to the questions that were posed during the summit. Thank you, everyone. Take care and stay safe.